Picture this. The TCO Performance Center is buzzing, and the Vikings are stacking up in fantasy football rankings like never before. Pro Football Focus just dropped their top 200 fantasy players for the 2025-26 season, and guess what? 6 Vikings made the cut, all in the top 100. That's right, our boys in purple are ready to dominate your fantasy drafts. But the big question is, can they translate that hype to the field? With so much talent, it's hard not to get fired up. Who's your top Vikings pick for fantasy this year? Drop it in the comments. The headliner, of course, is our superstar wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, sitting pretty at number 4 overall. Only Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs rank above him. Even with a mild hamstring strain sidelining him for now, Coach Kevin O'Connell says it's no big deal. JJ's expected to be ready to torch the Bears in Week 1. That's the kind of resilience we love. But with so much depth in this roster, who else is stepping up to make your fantasy team a championship contender? Here's the hook. While Jefferson's a no-brainer, the rest of the squad is where things get juicy. From a tight end looking to bounce back to a young QB ready to prove himself, the Vikings are loaded with weapons. Let's dive into the next piece of this purple puzzle and see who's climbing the ranks. Now, let's talk about a guy who's been a quiet force but could be a game-changer in 2025, TJ Hockenson. PFF ranked him at number 63, and yeah, that might seem low for a guy with his talent. After a tough 2024 with no touchdowns in 10 games, Hockenson's coming off an injury but looking hungrier than ever. In 2023, he hauled in 95 catches for 960 yards and 5 scores. Numbers that scream elite. So why the drop in rankings? Are we sleeping on this tight end too soon? Vikings on S-Ice will Raggets is all in on Hockenson, calling him J.J. McCarthy's security blanket. At Michigan, McCarthy loved throwing to tight ends like Colston Loveland, and early camp vibes show that chemistry with Hockenson is already clicking. Imagine this, McCarthy under pressure, firing a laser to Hockenson for a clutch first down. That's the kind of connection that could light up fantasy scoreboards. But can Hockenson regain his pre-injury explosiveness? What do you think, big year for TJ or not? Here's the kicker. PFF has George Kittle, Trey McBride, and Brock Bowers ahead of Hockenson. But, get this, Travis Kelce is ranked behind him at number 102. That's a bold call, and it's got us wondering if Hockenson's ready to outshine the big names. Stick around, because the next Viking on the list is bringing some serious touchdown swagger to the table. Let's shift gears to Jordan Addison, the speedster sitting at number 66 in PFF's rankings. This guy's got 19 receiving touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, tied for 4th among wide receivers. But here's the catch. He's only 26th in receiving yards and 28th in receptions. That's a wild stat line for a guy who could be a top 20 fantasy wideout if things break right. So, what's holding him back? And can he take that next step in 2025? Vikings fans, you know this offense is stacked. Let's hear your take. The buzz around Addison is electric, but there's a cloud hanging over him. A potential 3-game suspension from a July 2024 DUI arrest. The NFL's still deciding, and that uncertainty could shake up his fantasy stock. Imagine drafting Addison only to miss him for the first few weeks. Would you take the risk? On the field, he's been connecting with McCarthy in camp, including a 60-yard touchdown bomb that had fans losing their minds. That's the kind of play that makes you believe in the hype. But wait, there's more to this story. If Addison's sidelined, who steps up? Could this be a chance for another Viking to steal the spotlight? We're about to dive into the backfield, where a dynamic duo is ready to rumble. Keep watching to see who's next. Time to hit the ground running with our running back tandem, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. PFF has Jones at number 70 and Mason at number 77, and this duo could be a fantasy steal. Jones was a beast in his first Vikings season, setting career highs in snap rate and carries per game. But at 31 years old, the Vikings brought in the 26-year-old Mason to share the load. Think thunder and lightning, Jones with his finesse, Mason with his power. Who's your pick for the bigger fantasy impact? Will Raggets breaks it down perfectly. Jones is still RB1, coming off a 1,500-yard season with 306 touches. But Mason's addition screams a 60-40 split, keeping Jones fresh for the long haul. Picture this: Jones slicing through defenses for big gains, while Mason bulldozes for those tough red zone scores. That's a nightmare for opponents. But PFF notes Jones had a lower touchdown total last year. Can he and Mason boost those numbers in 2025? Drop your predictions below. Here's the twist. With so much talent around McCarthy, this backfield could be the key to unlocking the offense. But there's a young QB who's got everyone talking, and he's ranked higher than you might expect. Let's find out where our franchise guy lands on this list. Alright, Vikings fans, let's talk about the man under center, J.J. McCarthy. PFF slots him at number 96 overall, which might raise some eyebrows for a first-year starter. But hear this: despite limited rushing upside, McCarthy's stepping into a dream situation. Kevin O'Connell's offensive system has churned out top 10 fantasy QBs, even when Kirk Cousins went down. With weapons like Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, is McCarthy the sneaky fantasy pick we've all been sleeping on? Camp reports are electric. McCarthy's been lighting it up, like that deep ball to Jordan Addison that had the crowd chanting, "Skol!" He's shown no fear, hitting tight windows and connecting with his playmakers. Vikings on SI says he's got the arm strength and accuracy to make defenses pay. But at 22, with no regular season passes thrown, there's risk. Are you rolling the dice on JJ in your fantasy draft? Let's hear it in the comments. The big question: can McCarthy handle the pressure of a 14-win team with Super Bowl dreams? His camp performance says yes, but the NFL's a different beast. Up next, we've got a sleeper who's turning heads and could be your secret weapon in fantasy. Stay tuned. Now, let's shine the spotlight on a deep sleeper, Jalen Nailor. This speedster doesn't make PFF's top 200, but Coach O'Connell's hyping him up as the potential WR3. Last season, Nailor racked up 414 yards and 6 touchdowns, stepping up big when Addison was banged up. With Jordan Addison facing a possible suspension, could Nailor be the guy to snag those extra targets? Vikings fans, is Speedy ready to break out? O'Connell's been raving about Nailor's versatility, saying he handled multiple roles like a pro last year. Picture this: Nailor streaking down the sideline, hauling in a deep pass from McCarthy to flip a game. That's the kind of upside that makes him a late-round fantasy gem. But here's the catch: rookie Ty Felton's in the mix for that WR3 spot, too. Who's got the edge? Drop your thoughts below. Here's the plot twist: Nailor's in a contract year, and some are whispering he could be playing for a big deal elsewhere in 2026. Will he stay a Viking or cash in with another team? Let's move to the next piece of this puzzle. Some injury news that's got us all holding our breath. Let's hit pause on the fantasy talk for a hot second. Justin Jefferson's injury update has us all on edge. Coach O'Connell called it a very mild hamstring strain, and the plan is to have JJ back for Week 1 against the Bears. No preseason action for our star, but that's no surprise. Vikings are playing it safe with their $140 million man. So, how worried should we be about this setback? Let's break it down, Vikings Nation. The good news? Jefferson's been downplaying the injury, saying he's just being cautious with his legs early in camp. With over 6 weeks until the season opener, there's plenty of time to heal. But here's the thing: hamstring issues can linger if not handled right. Vikings on SI's Alec Lewis says there's no panic, but the team's keeping a close eye. What's your take? Full speed ahead for JJ or cause for concern? The bigger picture: without Jefferson in camp, guys like Addison, Nailor, and even rookie Ty Felton are getting more reps. Could this be a blessing in disguise for the depth chart? Next up, we've got a defensive update that's got Vikings fans buzzing about a top-tier unit. Let's dive in. Speaking of defense, let's talk about why the Vikings D could be the best in the NFL this year. Posts on X are hyping up Brian Flores' squad, and camp reports are backing it up. Jonathan Greenid's coming off a Pro Bowl season with 12 sacks, and he's already looking like a monster with would-be sacks and tackles for loss in practice. Add in newcomers Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, and this defensive line is a straight-up nightmare. Who's your defensive MVP for 2025? The secondary's no slouch either. Harrison Smith still picking off passes, and new addition Isaiah Rodgers is turning heads as a potential every-down starter. Picture this. Greenwood collapsing the pocket, Smith snagging a pick, and Rodgers locking down receivers. That's the kind of defense that could carry us to the playoffs. But can they live up to the hype against a brutal 2025 schedule? Drop your predictions in the comments. Here's the tease. With all this defensive firepower, could the Vikings be a dark horse for the Super Bowl? We're about to look at another key player who's locking down a big role. Stay with us. Let's zoom in on Josh Metellus, the Swiss Army knife of the Vikings defense. Fresh off a 3-year, $25 million extension, Metellus is ready to wreak havoc in Brian Flores' scheme. He's been all over the field in camp, and fans are buzzing about his versatility. Linebacker, safety, you name it. Vikings on SI calls him a cornerstone of this defense, but can he take it to the next level in 2025? What's your take on Metellus' impact? Metellus' new deal keeps him in purple through 2028, and that's huge for a guy who can play multiple roles. Imagine him blitzing off the edge one play, then dropping into coverage the next. That's the kind of chaos Flores loves to unleash. Ex-posts are calling this extension a massive win for the Vikings, and camp reports say he's already teaching younger players the ropes. Who else on this defense is ready to step up? Let's hear it. But hold up, there's a rookie in the mix who's stealing the show in camp. This guy could be the X-factor for our defense. Let's find out who he is next. Last but not least, let's talk about a rookie who's turning heads, cornerback Isaiah Rodgers. Signed as a free agent, Rodgers is already looking like a lock for an every-down role alongside Byron Murphy Jr. Camp reports say he's been a ball hawk, breaking up passes and showing veteran poise. With Mekhi Blackmon still battling back from an ACL injury, could Rodgers be the key to a lockdown secondary? Vikings fans, are you hyped for this guy? Vikings on SI's Will Raggets is all in, saying Rodgers has generated more buzz than almost anyone this offseason. Picture this. Rodgers picking off a pass in Week 1 against the Bears, setting the tone for the season. That's the kind of play that could make him a fan favorite. But with a tough schedule ahead, including matchups against the Eagles and Ravens, can he handle the pressure? Drop your thoughts below. That's a wrap, Vikings Nation. From fantasy studs to defensive beasts, this team's got it all. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your boldest 2025 prediction, and subscribe for more Vikings news. Share this with your fellow Skol fans, and let's get ready for a wild season. Skol Vikings!